Welcome to tonight's live stream. I'm going to get ready to start the show in a minute. What's going on, Sean S? Glad to see you here. Going to get started in a minute. Just have to let people know what's going on.
Selling your house is
All right, what's going on, Chris Brown? Chris is the the writer of the Black manga, Omega Black, and you guys should really check that manga out. It's great black manga, and it features positive images of black superheroes. And I'm going to get into this stream right about now. What's going on, Nightingale Wednesday Nightmare, Chris Bombor? I'm going to get into it right now because I had to make this live stream because we had so much cringe coming out of Hollywood as related to the MCU, the Men in Black movie, the new Shaft movie, and with the DC's superhero movies like the Batman and that Batwoman's new promotional trailer. There was just so much cringe. I just could not make a whole bunch of videos regarding all of that cringe. So I decided to cover it all in one live stream. And I'm going to start with the statement that Marvel Studios executive Victoria Alonso made regarding the X-Men. And your Victoria Alonso decided to call the X-Men name outdated. And that's a very cringy thing when I thought about it because, X-Men has been an icon in comic books and superheroes since about 1977, 1978, when the book started getting popular. And we have this female going to come in here and she's going to tell everybody that the name X-Men is outdated. Well, from a business perspective, X-Men is not outdated because at one time, X-Men was the number one selling comic book in the world. In fact, here in the United States in the late 80s, and what the X-Men sold 500,000 copies of Uncanny X-Men a month. And in the 90s, the first issues of X-Men sold over 1 million copies. So the name X-Men is a household brand, and to this day still remains a household brand because recently Hasbro launched a series of Marvel Legends with the X-Men wave, like this Psylocke, and this wave of figures sold like hotcakes. I mean, this is actually the purple Psylocke with the blue Psylocke's head. So when it came down to X-Men figures sell like hotcakes right now. And that X-Men wave, the third one they've come out now with characters like Blink here, this wave is selling like hotcakes right now. And people are looking for this wave and they were pre-ordering it. And some people were buying 2, and 3 cases of this wave so they could buy all the characters, because this wave has essential characters like Jubilee and Gambit, and it has the Beast. So people know who the X-Men are. Kids grew up with that 1992 X-Men cartoon, and kids grew up watching this X-Men cartoon. So going out here and saying that the X-Men name is outdated, this is a ridiculous argument, because the X-Men name isn't outdated. The X-Men name is an icon, and it's clear to me that if you make the right products that the customer wants, like this Psylocke action figure here, or this, you see back here, Wolverine here, you're going to have no problem selling product. So when it comes down to the X-Men, it's still a very viable name as related to products, and there's still a lot of anticipation for a quality X-Men film to be produced. Unfortunately, because we have all of these SJWs in your film industry right now, it doesn't look like we're going to get any sort of quality adaptation, whether it be from Fox, which recently made the disastrous Dark Phoenix movie, which bombed at the box office, or this current regime, like your Victoria Alonso, now the vice president at Marvel Studios. And the reason why we're not going to get any quality films at Marvel Studios is because it looks like they are caught up in the narrative of social justice. Because when I look at what your Victoria Alonso said in that statement, it shows me that Avengers Endgame was the end of the classic Marvel Cinematic Universe, and now we are starting to enter the era of SJW MCU, as I call it, or because I compare it to what people call SJW Marvel, so I call it the SJW MCU. So that's where I think we are going right now. And this is a terrible direction, because if we look at Dark Phoenix, they started trying to creep this stuff in, and they wanted to creep this stuff in talking about how they want to make it X-Women, when in actuality, it was called X-Men for a reason. And what these people need to do is try to figure out the reason why it is called X-Men, because X-Men has to do with human, and human comes from the Bible, because man was God's creation. So it was called X-Men because man was God's first creation, and woman comes from men. So the name X-Men is not an outdated name. It is a perfect name for the team. It's the name Stan Lee gave them, because I remember reading Origins of Marvel Comics. He originally planned to just call them the Mutants, but he said that it just did not have any ring to it. So that's why he called them the X-Men, because these were human beings with something extra. And this is what I read in X-Men #1. And I believe that Marvel Studios needs to pay respect to Stan Lee and Stan Lee's creations, and your Victoria Alonso needs to show respect to Stan Lee and his creations by staying true to their names and staying true to the source material. So he needs to stay true. They need to stay true to that, instead of saying, oh, the X-Men is outdated. Because if you say the X-Men is outdated, then somebody needs to just give you a pink slip. Unfortunately, it seems like Disney is a bit too gynocentric these days to check female executives like Victoria Alonso and check them on their nonsense before they go out here and say things that literally alienate people from the brand and have people turning away from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is more and more becoming the SJW Marvel Cinematic Universe, with movies like Captain Marvel and all of the cringe that was put in Avengers Endgame, and a lot of the cringe that I saw in Spider-Man Homecoming and the new Spider-Man Far From Home, which I call Agent Cody Banks because there's nothing in there featuring Spider-Man. So when I look at that whole statement with X-Men, it's a bad sign for Marvel Studios, and it's a sign that things are going to get worse because when I look at this and I look at the trailer for Spider-Man Far From Home, I'm not expecting Marvel Studios to continue producing quality films. What's going on, Devion Miles Mayhem? What's going on, D Woodward 78? What's going on, Supremo Ace 3567? Curious One. Glad to see you guys here. Hardcore H, glad to see you here at the stream. I'm talking about all of this SJW insanity in this one, and it was so much SJW insanity I couldn't cover it all in one video or series of videos because there's just so much going on right now. And the other thing that I had wanted to talk about was after this whole thing with Victoria Alonso and the X-Men was the decisions that are rumored regarding Marvel's Eternals movie, which is supposed to feature possibly a gay Hercules. Now, this one is quite troubling because it shows that Marvel Cinematic Universe is getting off the track as related to the characters and related to the source material. And when I look at this decision, if they do go along with this, this is going to be another nail in the coffin for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because if they go out here and try to change the Hercules character into a gay character, then I predict they may have a major bomb on their hands with the Eternals movie. Now, the plan for this Eternals movie, as it's rumored, is they want to go out here and make Hercules the lead character, and they want to make him an Eternal, but that really goes far out of the original source material for the Eternals. Now, when it comes down to Hercules and Marvel Comics, he comes from the Olympian gods, and the Olympian gods are separate from the Eternals of Titan. Now, the Eternals are a completely different group of cosmic beings. They're considered cosmic gods, and that group was Icarus, Athena, Circe, and a couple of others, and they were derived and inspired by the gods of mythology, and they were led by Zorus, who is like Zeus, but he was more of a cosmic version. So the Eternals were a completely different group, and there was no Hercules in the group. The Hercules came from the Olympian gods, and if they go and deviate from the source material, I believe that they are going to be in for a disaster. And if they go out here and talk about doing things like trying to make it all about diversity and identity politics, I think they're going to have as big a disaster as they had with Solo, a Star Wars movie. Because if you go into that road, you're going to have a complete disaster because you're trying to create a character who is not from the source material. And that was one of the things that made Marvel Studios movies incredibly popular, was the fact that they would always stay true to the source material, they would stay true to the characters, and they would always make efforts to try to maintain the spirit of Stan Lee's work. But I'm not seeing that effort being made here. Well, thank you, Alan, for the donation. I'll check out your platform after tonight's stream, and I'll see what it's about. But I'm gonna get back into this. But if this rumor is true, and I've read this article, not only on one website, I also read it on Out Magazine's website, which is a gay website. This is a quite troubling trend for the Marvel Studios because they're continuing to derive from the source material, and continuing to derive from the source material is this mistake that Warner Brothers made with Joel Schumacher, with Batman Forever, and then they really felt it with Batman and Robin, a film that was filled with a lot of homoerotic subtext with all of the crotch shots, all of the butt shots, and the Batman costume with the nipples, and all of that stuff was quite troubling to look at when you look at the imagery. And Batman Forever had all of these homosexual overtones with the Riddler literally obsessing over Bruce Wayne. And when I look at your Marvel Cinematic Universe, I'm looking at it and it's going in a similar direction to what Joel Schumacher was doing. And that's something hold on a second. That's a very troubling trend with the Marvel Studios. So I'm not a fan of where the direction that they're going in. And when I see a lot of the Phase 4 movies, I don't really see anything compelling there. If you're talking about Doctor Strange 2, you're talking about Captain Marvel, you've got a lot of movies here, and you don't have any A characters in these movies, and then you want to promote social justice. And then there's also another rumor that Ironheart is coming to the MCU, and if that is again another nail in the coffin, because Riri Williams is one of the most hated characters in the MCU. And then we have rumors that they're trying to cast one of those Indian actresses and as a rumored Kamala Khan. So it looks like MCU is turning into SJW MCU, and any diehard fan is going to get off the train after Endgame because they see the wreck getting ready to come with your MCU at this point, because these movies, they're walking away from the source material, and instead of them being about staying true to the stories of the MCU, it is becoming more about identity politics and promoting those social justice ideas and concepts from the far left. Devon, I have not seen American Gods. I really don't watch too much TV. Right now, I'm trying to just get caught up on other stuff. Still haven't done my review of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, but I want to do that in a video soon. But I want to watch it again. But I'm trying to get stuff going. But there's a lot of stuff coming down the pipe as related to these superhero movies, and there is just, again, so much cringe going on. Excuse me. But there's so much cringe, and the thing with Victoria Alonso and then the Eternals. These are things that are indicators that the Marvel Cinematic Universe we all enjoyed for the last decade has come to an end, and we're getting ready to watch a complete disaster continuing to go on. I'm Hardcore H. I'm going to get into Agent DuVernay and New Gods, which is another cringe thing, because Agent DuVernay writing New Gods, that's not something I would want to get into, because when I think of Ava DuVernay, yes, she does good work on African American films, but A Wrinkle in Time was a complete disaster, and it was due to her arrogance and her apathy, or she didn't really care about the film. She didn't care about the quality of the film. She didn't care about the quality of the storytelling. And she's now with Tom King, a man who really is one of the worst writers at DC right now. And they're trying to spin it that Tom King is off Batman because he's going to write New Gods. But when I look at Tom King, he's not the man who's qualified to write the screenplay. Yes, he had a critically acclaimed Mr. Miracle series that won some awards, but when you take a critical look at Tom King, he's not a very good writer. When you look at his ending for Mr. Miracle, Heroes in Crisis, and the worst Batman run in over 25 years. And with your Tom King, his problem is that, yes, he can set up a story, but the big problem is he can't pay it off. And the combination of a writer who cannot pay off a story with a director who has very little experience in science fiction and fantasy films is a recipe for a disaster as I see it. So, and I look at Warner Brothers, they remind me again of Pookie, the crackhead in New Jack City, and the cheeseburger guy from Menace to Society. And when it came down to those two guys, they were trying to get it together, but that crack kept calling them. And when it came down to Pookie, the crack kept calling him. And this is why your DC continue and Warner Brothers continue to make mistake after mistake after mistake. They oftentimes, when they just get some things going right, like Aquaman, Shazam, Wonder Woman, even things like Doom Patrol and Swamp Thing, they often become their own worst enemy and they wind up tripping over their own feet. And when it comes down to Warner Brothers, there's just so many bad business decisions. It's just not funny. I mean, there are just so many terrible business decisions on the DC side. I mean, the DC streaming service is finally getting fans back into DC superheroes. And what does Warner Brothers do? Warner Brothers talks about they're reevaluating the streaming service, and that's putting people on edge, and that's going to really hurt subs because people would have wanted to stay buying subs for the DC Universe subscription because they were seeing some fairly decent adaptations like Doom Patrol, Young Justice Season 3, or even your um, Stargirl. It was looking good. But because Warner Brothers is so greedy, they just weren't thinking about, look, let's keep this streaming service going and let's keep this streaming service moving and keep this momentum going. No, they want to go for bigger dollars instead of thinking about that bigger picture, and they wind up tripping over their own feet. And as they were tripping over their own feet, so-called reevaluating DC's streaming service, the other mistake that they made was canceling Swamp Thing. Now, Swamp Thing was getting good numbers, getting good reviews, and building some buzz. But because your Warner Brothers could not work things out with the state of, I believe, North Carolina or South Carolina as related to production tax credits, then they decided to go out here and end the series. And that's not what a smart television executive does. A smart television executive, what they do, thank you, Divion. It is North Carolina, thank you. But they should have been working things out with the governor or the city count or the governor and their people, because they could have worked things out similar to what DC could have done with Dwayne McDuffie's widow. It was easy to work this out because both parties would have benefited from the production. The production would have brought jobs to North Carolina. It would have brought tax revenue to North Carolina. But instead of them working together, your DC decides to end production on a critically acclaimed show that was building a following and thinking about short dollars instead of trying to work out a long-term plan towards keeping the show in production and keeping the residents of North Carolina at work. What was happening here was just more Warner incompetence and just shows the complete lack of leadership at Warner Brothers overall, because they should have been trying to work that out, because it was a win-win situation for DC Comics for their critically acclaimed show, and it would have been a win for the state of North Carolina overall. So that was a major mistake for Warner Brothers. You could have put a lot of people in North Carolina to work, and you could have kept people in North Carolina to work because these productions are moneymakers for those residents. So that was something I believe that Warner Brothers should have done, because it was a gesture of goodwill. I mean, the show's overall budgets, you could have made a bunch of money on it. So that was another mistake that your Warner Brothers has made. And one of the big mistakes that your Warner Brothers has made so far is with this Batwoman show, which has now decided to come out with yet another trailer. Now, this second trailer for Batwoman, this is a super cringe fest because in a clip we see your um I forget what her name is, but we see her on the street, and Kathy, is it Kathy Kane? I don't know, but we see her on the street and she sees a homeless girl sitting there, and the white male guard tells her that if you give her money, oh, it's Kate Kane. Because this show is just so painful. I don't even want to remember it because what's going on, Black Ronin? Glad to see you here. But Kate Kane is walking down the street. This homeless, blonde, blue-eyed white girl is sitting on the street with a cardboard sign saying she's homeless and needs help. And what happens is she gives her some money, and then the guy tells her, you'll only encourage her. And then some rock music plays, and then she decides to give her one of Bruce Wayne's gold watches. So in one 40-second clip, we get another jab at the patriarchy and more social justice thrown at us, showing us more and more that this Batwoman show, which already had a disastrous 3-minute trailer, is going to be chock filled with cringe on what I'm going to call SJW Sunday, because you have Supergirl on Sunday and you have Batwoman on Sunday. So this is going to make up the SJW Sunday action hour, and it's going to be so filled with cringe, it's going to be absolutely painful. Now, they call Superman and Batman the world's finest, and I'm going to call Supergirl and Batwoman the world's finest disaster, because in between both of these shows, it's just going to be so much cringe. It's going to be absolutely painful, and you're going to need a very strong stomach to tolerate both of these absolutely dreadful shows. So when I'm looking at September of 2019 or October of 2019, like Black Ronin said, world's cringiest, that's what's coming to us on the CW. And it looks like this Batwoman is going to be one of the most cringiest programs out of this era of SJW media. Now, yeah, Daryl, I really hate the way they have Luke Fox. They have turned him into a complete beta male. He's completely emasculated, and he looks like he's walking in the footsteps of the bumbling, stumbling Mr. Terrific. Because when I look at Luke Fox, I see the same bumbling, stumbling character that they've made Mr. Terrific into, and it's a shame that we see another strong, heterosexual black male completely emasculated so that a white woman can appear to be superior and appear to be the smartest person in the room. And that's one of the things that annoys me about these kind of shows, is that they tear down the great male characters in order to make the female characters great, but the female characters aren't great because they never go out here and show us what makes them great. They never show us in terms of character how they overcome obstacles. They never show us how they take on challenges, and they never show us how they are relatable or identifiable. Supremo, I don't think that Disney is deliberately trying to kill the MCU. What I think is happening with Disney is that it's chock filled with these SJWs and far left ideologues. And because these people are now a part of Disney, they want to promote social justice and their social justice agendas in films. And they believe if they promote their social justice agendas in these films, what will happen is people will identify with them, relate to them. And unfortunately, this is not happening when we look at the box office numbers for many of these films, because we had X-Men Dark Phoenix, which is now on the scrap heap with Ghostbusters 2016 and Ocean's 8. And from what I read in a recent article, your Men in Black International has flopped, and your beta male shaft has flopped as well. So I have an article right there from Cosmic Book News, and it shows that this attempt to promote social justice in cinema is not going over very well. And it looks like this I have not seen the trailer for Pennyworth yet, Supremo. I'm going to go look for it in a minute once I get off the stream, because again, so much cringe just coming down the pipe, and it's like being in a tidal wave in a sewer. So just so much crap coming down the pipe. It's just not funny, and I just can't cover it all. That's why I'm trying to do this live stream, because I'm trying to cover all of this trash that's coming down the pipe. And again, when I look at what they did with this Men in Black movie, I saw the trailer for that. I think about it a couple months ago, and that was one of the cringiest things, because that was all about promoting more feminism in this franchise. And then you had your Tessa Thompson running her mouth and torpedoing the movie before it could even get any momentum, because when it came down to your Men in Black International, it already suffered from an already weak trailer where Tessa Thompson was basically a Mary Sue character, and she had a complete lack of screen presence. You had Chris Hemsworth being a complete beta male, which was nothing like Tommy Lee Jones, and Thompson and Hemsworth did not have any of the chemistry or energy that Jones and Smith had, because Tommy Lee Jones was a great straight man playing off against Will Smith's punchlines, and we didn't get that in this Men in Black International. And then Tessa Thompson, Miss Super Feminist, decides to run her mouth talking about how it should be humans in black, when again, she clearly does not understand the source material she is working with, because anybody who's a comic fan knows that Men in Black comes from a Malibu comic series called Men in Black, and that Men in Black series was based on the whole idea of aliens and Area 51 and the Men in Black who protected it during the 1950s. But your Tessa Thompson, she wants to smash the patriarchy and push social justice, and she wants to be a man and be just like a man. And when she does this, she alienates many of the comic fans who read the original Malibu comic, and she alienates many of the people who watched those iconic Men in Black movies in the 90s and those who watched the Men in Black cartoons. So there were people who knew these characters history, and they knew what Men in Black was, but they're going to try to tell us that Men in Black is something completely different. And it's destroying, like Cool Gent 87 is saying, he said he just keeps destroying his childhood, and it ruins everybody's childhood, because these far leftists, they want to promote their ideas of diversity, but then they don't want to give us stories that are true to the characters and true to that source material. They want to be able to try to force their ideas onto these iconic characters, and that's what's winding up alienating so many people regarding their films that they're producing right now, or the ideas they want to push right now. Like for Matt Reeves, the Batman, they want to go out here and talk about how they want to put in a female Alfred and a female Joker, when this does not fit within the dynamics of the series, and it does not fit with what the original creators, Bill Finger and Bob Kane, created. And these people, again, they want to push their far left agenda without respecting the writers and the artists. Yes, that Supremo, they did want to make a female Joker. Well, we have a female Joker in your CW's painful Batwoman series, so we don't need a female Joker in the Batman, but they want to put one there anyway. I mean, it's bad enough that they're considering your Macaulay Culkin as the Joker, which is already painful as it is, but they want to push for a female Joker and a female Alfred. And again, that runs counter to what Bruce Wayne was all about. Bruce Wayne was supposed to be, his manhood was defined by Thomas Wayne, Alfred, and the Sensei. Those are the three men who laid the foundation for Bruce and the man he became. So when I look at this attempt to try to bring this into the source, it betrays the source material, and it changes the dynamics, because it was Thomas Wayne who laid Bruce's foundation for the man he was going to become. It was Alfred who taught him compassion and understanding, and it was the Sensei who taught him discipline and how to be, persevere in the face of adversity. So all three of those men are integral to who Bruce becomes, and they are integral to Bruce Wayne and his development into the Batman. So you cannot change the gender of Batman's butler, or go out here and change the Joker, because Bruce and the Joker, they have a relationship dynamic, and that's something that is something you cannot change. And if you make a female Joker, it destroys the dynamic, because when it comes down to the Joker sees Batman as a rival. He sees him as a threat. And again, his relationship is based in male dynamics. So when I look at them and they doing this, they're making a mess. Yeah, Supremo, he was partially raised by Leslie Tompkins, but again, she also taught him in some ways as well. And again, he gets his compassion from Alfred and her, but Alfred is integral to it, because it's like all those things define him as a man. So Batman is a very, very patriarchal character, and they go out here and they want to make this Batman that's gynocentric, when in actuality, if you want to make a gynocentric character, what they need to do is create their own characters. But many of these SJWs, they don't have the imagination, they don't have the creativity, and they don't have the perseverance to create their own characters, because when you create your own characters, it's a major challenge. And instead of them, working through their character development, working through the character flaws, trying to work on things as related to the character's personality, the character's voice, the character's strengths, the character's weaknesses, these people, what they want to do is go find somebody else's character and then try to shoehorn their ideals into that character, instead of trying to create a character with their own mission, their own sense of direction, and their own paradigm for stories, because that's a lot of work. And I know how much work it is, because I've done that work, going out here and creating characters like Isis, and it's a lot of work creating those character dynamics, creating that character's mission, and creating that character's flaws, and finding that character's voice. So that's something that the SJW doesn't want to do, because the SJW, what they want to do is they want to get instant fame by picking up somebody else's icon and then making an effort to redefine that character as their own. Unfortunately, in their attempts to redefine that character, they usually fail. And the reason why they usually fail is because they don't understand the structure of that character. They don't understand the mission of that character. They don't understand the history of that character. And they want to try to put their narrative on that character, but it just doesn't work, because it just isn't coming organically from that character. So whenever I go out here and I'm doing a character, whether it be, again, Isis or Eastine or Matilda Crowley from the Spinsterella trilogy, I'm always thinking about the character, their relationship dynamics, their personality, their flaws, their voice, their internal character traits, because those things are extremely important. But when it comes down to the SJW, all they're thinking about is the external and trying to promote their ideas of diversity, but oftentimes their ideas of diversity are shallow. And yeah, Hardcore H, I have heard about that from Kevin Feige. And if he does that, he's going to be in for a series of box office disasters. Because Kevin Feige says that the majority of MCU characters will be female. But here's the problem: most women aren't going out here buying the tickets for these movies. It is mostly men. And if we look at the box office for Dark Phoenix, Men in Black International, all of these films are failing, and Captain Marvel recently underperformed. And if these numbers are an indicator to this direction, it shows it's a bad direction, because there's only so much money that the movie studios can afford to lose before they put themselves at the risk of bankruptcy. Supremo asks a good question. Why can't the strong females share the spotlight with the strong male characters? Well, that's because the feminists are insecure, and because they're insecure, they don't feel confident in their creations standing and working side by side with a male character. And they believe that their character has to be in the spotlight in order to be strong. But a good writer understands that if in order for this character to show strength, they have to be able to stand at the side of a male character. Now, when I was doing E-Steam, The Sands of Time, I wanted to show that a male character like John Haynes and a female character like E-Steam could work well together, and they could balance off each other, because I believe that if you're going to write a strong heroine, she has to show how she can help the male characters and how she can work effectively with those male characters, and how she has strengths and weaknesses, and how the male character, the hero, has strengths and weaknesses, and how they can both work together to overcome the challenges of the villain and the conflict. And from the feedback I got on E-Steam, The Sands of Time, that was one of the things people liked seeing about E-Steam and John Haynes, was seeing them both working together. And that's something people want to see. They want to see a man and a woman working together. And this whole concept of strong women in your superhero films, your TV shows, it really, it's not working, because, again, if you are a strong heroine, then you don't mind standing at the side of a strong man, because you are confident in yourself, you are confident in your abilities, and you are confident in who you are. And if you want to see those dynamics working together, the way men and women are supposed to work together, let's see if I can bring it up. You can pick up a copy of E-Steam, The Sands of Time on Amazon, and try to leave a link to it. Oh, it's not going to let me do it. But E-Steam, The Sands of Time is on Amazon, and it is a story that shows you men and women working together. Another story that shows you men and women working together is the new John Haynes Dark Succubus. In this story, we get to see E-Steam and John working together to help John overcome this dark and sultry succubus. And again, I show you male-female dynamics and how men and women working together. And that's what I believe people want to see in a story, and what they want to see in a story overall with a hero and a heroine. They don't want this social justice, which is really rooted in a lot of insecurity, a lot of fear, and a lot of these feminists, they fear the idea of these heroines they create not being able to stand on their own 2 feet. So what they do is they go out here and overpower them, or they make them Mary Sues, because they don't have the courage to let their character stand on their own. So that's a big problem. Yeah. But if Kevin Feige believes that the majority of the MCU will be female and they'll have, a successful box office, he's going to be in for a rude awakening, because these movies are flopping left and right. Because when it comes down to people who win the superhero movies, They only want to see strong characters, and they want to see strong character transformation arcs. And many of these SJW concepts, they don't give us any substance. They just give us forced diversity in characters who have a skin color but no content to their character, or they give us these super feminist characters who are supposed to be strong women on the outside but have no internal character traits on the inside that make them relatable to us, identifiable to us, or human in any way, shape, or form. So it's very frustrating to sit there and watch these kind of movies because, like with the Captain Marvel, like Daryl Phil Eiffel's talking about, yeah, they showed this deleted scene which showed her as really a villain, the way she was bullying people and threatening people. And that's not the trait of a heroine. That's not something you want to see a heroine do, threatening people, bullying people, harassing people, or acting smug and superior the way Captain Marvel was, because the way Captain Marvel was acting, she was just like a villain. She wasn't somebody that showed us traits that were being models for people to, look up to. She didn't show us how to be a hero. She didn't show us how to overcome as a hero. She didn't show us how she was going to take things on and look to protect others. It was just all about her. And when you look at her character traits, she's so much like a villain. It's just not funny. And when I was looking at that deleted scene, I was like, you were copying Terminator 2 and not understanding that that was part of a broader character transformation arc. And with Captain Marvel, she never really transforms or changes in any way organically. And that's one of the things about many of these SJW characters, is that we never get to see that character transformation arc. It's like everybody's so eager to get a woman and put her in a place of a man, like Alan Smith has made the point of, but they're not thinking about what makes that woman a hero. Now, as a writer of heroines, like I do in my books, the ISIS series and the E-Steam series, I understand that you cannot take what men have created. You cannot take a woman and put it in the place of a man. You have to go out here and give women their own characters that are distinct and give them characters that show the things that are positive about women. And I try to do that in the books of the 2019 catalog, like Isis, All That Glitters, and E-Steam, Goddess of, and other books in the SJS Direct imprint, like Isis, All About the Goddess, which is a mystery, which everybody loves, and is an international seller. This one has a new cover and is a digital interpretation of Isis by Tony Quaid. He did a great job on this. Or E-Steam Ascension, where I try to show you a strong heroine again that is in the climax of the story, dealing with her inner demons once and for all. But I try to show you that a story for a woman is different than that of a man, and you just can't put a woman in a man's role. Which cover do you like, Black Ronin? But you cannot put a woman in a man's role. You have to make a story that shows how women are great, what makes women interesting, and what really makes women relatable to other women. You just can't go out here and just shoehorn a woman. Okay, you mean All About the Goddess? Yeah, this one, people like this one. They love this story because this is a mystery, and people like this one. It's in the art world of college and the art modeling. And this was one people really like. I think you'll like this one if you give it a try. It's on Amazon right now. I put a new cover on it because this is one of the better selling ISIS series books. And it's, again, one that really will, when you read it, people, they just seem to like it. But again, I show you that heroines, what makes them strong is their strength of character, their ability to stand up for what they believe in, stand up for their ideals, and stand up for the things that matter to them. So that's something we're not getting with these heroines that are part of this SJW narrative. And these efforts to make these women, these super strong women who are going to be men and smash the patriarchy, these things are alienating to male readers, and they're alienating to a large majority of the female readers. The male readers get alienated because here you have this woman who is coming out here being this rude and disrespectful female, and the women are turned off because this woman is acting masculine. So these SJW characters, they think these SJW characters are made by these creators who think that they're going to show us a strong woman, but the traits that she has turn people off. I mean, these traits that they're putting up on screen, like in that Batwoman trailer, where you're just going to have Kate Kane literally disrespect the legacy of Bruce Wayne. That's not something that people want to see. What they want to see is somebody who is going to work out with Batman or alongside Batman, and they don't want to show respect to Bruce Wayne, his legacy, and the things that matter to him. It's all about making her appear to be superior to Bruce Wayne, but the irony is that the character shows how inferior she is and how deep her inferiority complex is. Because when it comes down to the Kate Kane character, I see a character that is rooted in insecurity, rooted in feelings of inadequacy, and with a deep-seated sense of penis envy. And she really wants to be a man, but the problem is with Batwoman is she doesn't show us what's great about her as a woman. And that's what people want to see in a superheroine story. They want to see what women contribute to the world as heroines. They want to see them and how they go out of their way to protect the world and protect the people in their world, and how they do things that are relatable to the world of men and women. What they want to see is how this woman uses her power, which is really the great power she has, is her strength of character, her strong moral position, and the intangibles as related to her womanhood. But we don't get to see that anymore. I mean, we haven't really seen it since, I believe, the last seasons of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Xena Warrior Princess before season 6. We really have not seen that type of storytelling, which really gave us strong heroines. Because if you look at Buffy and you look at Xena, and even if you look at episodes of Daria, you're going to see some strong heroines, and you're going to see stories featuring strong heroines, and you're going to see full character transformation arcs. So, Luciana, you did miss a lot. I went into depth about a lot of the SJW insanity going on with these Marvel Studios movies, DC Comics, DC Comics film and TV division. And I've also spoke about the Men in Black, which is now failing at the box office thanks to Tessa Thompson's big mouth. So there was a lot of ground that I covered. I talked about these SJW heroes that we're getting, and it looks like we're going to be getting for the foreseeable future. I talked a little bit about Kevin Feige and his master plan to give us all of these heroines, but the whole thing is he doesn't understand that the story model is different for heroines. Yeah, I did talk about Dark Phoenix, Black Ronin failing too, but that story model is very different for heroines than it is for heroes. And it takes a good writer to sit down with them and tell them, look, you cannot write a heroine the same way you can a hero. You can't write the same story for a heroine as you would a hero. Black Ronin, my predictions for episode 9 is we're going to get the second Star Wars flop because people are apathetic about this about the last trailer, and people have just given up on Star Wars because there's nothing else you can add to it. You can bring back all the old nostalgia characters, but once they killed Luke, it was the end for Star Wars. So Star Wars is a dead franchise, and there's nothing they can do about it. The nails were put in the coffin with your Last Jedi, and that movie put the nail in the coffin for Star Wars. So it's over for Star Wars. So no matter what anybody does, it's finished because the story was Skywalker, and you're going to tell me that it's going to be the rise of Skywalker when we saw Luke Skywalker die at the end of Episode 8. So you can't have Star Wars go on without its hero. So at this point, this is just a desperate attempt to try to revive a dead franchise. And as I see it, if they wanted to do a new trilogy, they shouldn't have done it with any of the old characters. What they should have done was really talk about something I had proposed, that the war being over and it being about the rebuilding of the Republic. And then there are these small pockets that are still loyal to the Empire, and these small pockets of that are loyal to the Empire are looking to try to overthrow the rebuilding of the Republic. And as I saw it, Princess Leia should have become one of the leaders in the Senate. Luke should have been the leader of the Jedis, and it should have been possibly a plan to do something with Han Solo, where we get this ultimate redemption, where he goes from a scoundrel to a leader who brings the galaxy together. So, as I see it, that's where they should have gone with Star Wars, showing these characters evolving, these characters changing, and they didn't do that. They didn't really do that. They blew their opportunity to make Star Wars great because Kathleen Kennedy wanted to push her feminist agenda, and because she pushed her feminist agenda, they destroyed Star Wars. And as I see it, that's the direction they should have went with the old characters, with the rebuilding of the New Republic, and it should have been a trilogy about the New Republic that came out of the war across the galaxy, because the Emperor had been defeated, and everything should have been focusing on rebuilding the Republic. So, yeah, I know Harrison Ford didn't like Han Solo, but as I see it, there was a character transformation arc for him in the new trilogy where they could have focused on the New Republic and him becoming a bigger leader in the New Republic or something like that. That's a good question. How did the First Order get all that cash when the Empire had fallen? So that was a plot hole. But is your question appearing? Let me see. Why do SJW create black characters with cliches or smooth boxes of stereotypes? That's because they don't know many black people. So because they don't know many black people, that's why they create these stereotype characters, because when it comes down to SJWs, they don't live in our world. They live in a world where it's a bubble. So they don't know black people, but they want to talk for us, but they don't know anything. Yeah, D. Woodward, they should have stuck with that plan. Yeah, with Finn becoming a Jedi, that would have been better than what they did. But because feminists are racist, they didn't like the idea of a black man being the lead character, and many of the white racist fanboys didn't like the idea of Finn being the lead character. So, yeah, I'm afraid they're gonna mess up the old Republic too, because it's just that you have too many SJWs running things and they're ruining fantasy because they're not storytellers. What's going on, Mobar 7170? Glad to see you here. Yeah, they're thinking thanks, glory, and nonsense. Yeah, but they have paper thin. Yeah, because they don't have any of those characteristics that make them heroines. The thing is that they want to be like, they want the attention, the praise, but being a hero isn't about getting attention and praise. It's about how many times you can get up after you fall down. That was something I went in depth in one of my novels. I think it's here. Do I have it? Yeah. Legendary Mad Matilda, where I show the Matilda character who, after in one of her darkest periods, she has to try to get back up after falling down. So that's what a heroine is all about. But we're not getting that, because when it comes down to many of these feminists, they don't want to see women suffer. And they don't understand that when a woman, what makes her a heroine is her ability to get back up after falling down. But we don't get that in many of these SJW stories, because these women are insecure and they believe any sort of thing that shatters these characters, any sort of tragedy, that's being a misogynist, when it's not being a misogynist. to show a woman falling down. It actually shows how great her character is when she falls down, because that shows that she has to have the courage to get back up. And when you read a book like Legendary Mag Matilda and you compare it to the SJW books with heroines, you're going to see a big difference between them. And this is one that you really should look at because it shows how the Matilda Crowley character in her darkest period gets back up after falling down. And also, we see the Easteme character at her lowest point in Easteme Ascension, and she has to overcome her greatest demons in this story. And this is a very powerful story. This one will have you very emotional when you read it, because this is one where you're going to see this character really go through some hardship. And when you see this one and you compare it to one of these SJW characters, you're going to see a major difference between how a heroine overcomes adversity versus what we see in any of these SJW books. Oh yeah, I like Mace Windu on Black Ronin. And here's a fun fact. Osiris that I created was actually inspired by Mace Windu and Samuel L. Jackson's portrayal of Mace Windu. So the Osiris in the Isis series is actually inspired by Samuel L. Jackson's portrayal of Mace Windu. And I try to incorporate part of that into the character, actually. I didn't know Mace Windu survived, and I'm wondering what he was doing in all that time. What's going on, Rob I.S.? Glad to see you here. Yeah, G. Woodward, when it comes down to SJWs, yeah, they do care about Black people, but actually all they want to do is use us as a way to go out here and further their agenda. They don't care about Black people. They just want to use us to say that they're not racist, and then they want to go out here and promote all these old stereotypes with us in their stories. They want to include us so that they can say that they're not racist, but in actuality, the irony is that they show how racist they truly are in their actions. And that's the thing that makes the SJW show the truth about themselves, is their actions. It is their actions that define their character. And when it comes down to the SJW, they are the biggest racist in the room. And they'll sit there and talk about how we need to include all these people, but they only want to include them as long as they are fitting into their smooth world. And the whole thing with their smooth world is that they want you to be here as long as you are in a stereotype role, like a big fat Black woman who makes the white woman appear to be more attractive in comparison, the sterile Gordon Goodbrother who is asexualized, or the beta male like we saw with Lucius Fox's son, or they want us to go out here and be like with Hispanic people. They want them to be the guy working at the store with the fruits and vegetables, or the Asian guy. They want him to be in the Chinese laundry. As long as you fit into their world and don't challenge them, they have no problem with you, but they only have a problem. The whole thing is that in the real world, you run into real people, and real people don't want to fit into those boxes. And that's something that these SJWs want, and that's what makes the world such a shallow place. And that's what makes much of the art and literature they produce to be extremely shallow. They want to sit there and promote diversity, but the diversity they want to promote really presents the worst images of Black people, Hispanic people, Asian people, and even gay people, and makes all sorts of stereotypes that take you out of reality and put you in their smooth world. But their smooth world is nothing but cringe, because in their smooth world, everything is just like a stereotype out of an old 1970s TV show like Different Strokes, which is just so racist, it's not funny. Oh, Black Ronin, that happens. When you say the word smooth world, that's a term people can't get used to because it actually is true. It's something that Dr. Robert Glover talked about in his book, No More Mr. Nice Guy. And again, it's a world where they don't have to deal with any conflicts or obstacles or problems. And they probably looked at you baffled because they don't understand what that concept is. In the real world, you have to deal with a lot of rough stuff, a lot of obstacles, a lot of conflicts. But these guys, they want to live in a smooth world where everybody's in their place and then they can feel comfortable and secure in their place. And yeah, just like Supremo says, the SJW doesn't want to take the red pill. They want to live in a blue pill fantasy where everybody is where they're supposed to be and they're comfortable. Black Ronin, Luke Cage is one of the best series Netflix ever produced. It is one of the most positive portrayals of a black man on screen. And the ratings of the first season crashed the server, but now they want to say that the second season didn't do well. But everybody I knew was watching Luke Cage, and everybody was raving about Luke Cage. And it was a classic. I mean, Luke Cage season 2 is a masterpiece, and I highly recommend you see both seasons, but I definitely recommend you see season 2 because season 2 was one of the best series of any Marvel superhero out here. Just well crafted, well developed characters, and we started to see Luke Cage evolve as a character. And I'd have to say Chio Hodari Coker took the character to the next level. So he did something brilliant with season 2. Yeah, they should have gotten an Emmy nod, Supremo. And the episode directed by Sally Richardson should have gotten an Emmy nomination itself. I mean, that episode 4 is a masterpiece. And you really need to go out there and see it. Yeah, I remember I had all the episodes of Static Shock on VHS, but when I moved, I had to leave them because I had no place to put all those VHS tapes. I have, I think, one tape left of Static Shock. I'm going to try to get the episodes on DVD soon because my money hasn't been right, but I want to try to get it soon. So I taped almost all of the episodes of Static Shock. I had them all with the commercials and everything, and I would watch them from time to time. So I remember Static Shock vividly, and I watch it all the time, Alan. I just watch it all. I used to watch it all the time. Hoping to get the DVDs soon. Yeah, I saw the fan film. I just wish he hadn't taken so many liberties with it. Let me see what Luciano was talking about. Can women and minorities boycott SJW-oriented comics? Well, they're doing that right now, and nobody's calling them traitors because a lot of women are offended by it. A lot of black people are offended by it. A lot of Hispanic people are offended by SJW comics. And the reason why they are not buying it and they're not boycotting, they're just avoiding them because everything in there is an insult to women. Everything in there is insulting to black people, minorities. Everything in an SJW comic is an insult because it breathes brand new life into old stereotypes. It says that in order for a woman to be strong, she has to be like a man. It says that black people cannot be human beings, and it promotes all sorts of stereotypes about black people and women and other races. And people don't want to read that in these stories. They want to see people like themselves, people who have their experiences, and they're not getting that from your SJW comics or your SJW movies. And that's why people aren't watching this stuff. But Hollywood continues to try to push it, not understanding that people want action-packed stories with great character development. They're not really concerned with the gender of the character. They want a character with rich, multidimensional personality, a great voice, and lots of great character flaws that make them relatable. And we're not getting that from these SJW comics, these SJW books, these SJW TV shows, or these SJW movies. Luciano, what is the key to promoting women and minorities in comics, in your opinion, without adding SJW cliches or themes? Well, as a writer of black heroes and heroines, I can tell you that you can do it without SJW cliches and themes by just writing great characters and writing great stories. I mean, if you have a character and a story, I shouldn't see their color or their gender as I'm reading it. I should be hearing their voice and the narration of the narration, and I should be taken in to the action, and I should not be focused on skin tones or things like that or cultures, because I need to get to know this character. And yes, they can be a character that is black, they can come from black culture, but the whole thing is I need to be invested in their story, not their ethnicity. And the big problem with SJW comics is we're so invested in their ethnicity and their identity that we just can't get into their stories. So that's the big problem with these SJW characters, is that they don't have a story. I mean, I remember reading Magnificent Ms. Marvel, and that was just glorified fan fiction telling me how great Ms. Marvel will be, how great her destiny will be, but never taking us into the adventure to make us care about that character. It was just all about us being told this character is great. As I see it, characters, what makes them great is what the adversity and challenges they overcome. Supremo, do I think Night Thrasher was a strong character? Yeah, he was a very strong character. And he showed how he was a strong character by overcoming the grief of his parents' deaths and taking the lead of the New Warriors. He was a very strong character and a very powerful character. He didn't have really superpowers, but it was his drive and determination that made him a great character. And I think he could have been one of those characters that could have been easily adaptable to the screen if Marvel Studios took the effort into it. So when I look at, your Night Thrasher, he's a great character. I have his Marvel Legends on the shelf over there. I wouldn't go get him, but oh well. Yeah, they do have the traits of a supervillain. Many of the SJW characters, they are a lot like supervillains because they are selfish. It's all about them. It's all about them getting praise. Whereas a superhero is about making sacrifices to help others, and it's about them doing what is right for others and not about themselves. So when you look at an SJW character, they have this selfishness and this narcissism, and that's one of those things that takes people out of their stories and makes you not look at them as a hero, because a hero looks out for others and cares for others. But in these stories, we don't see these characters ever caring about anyone but themselves. Yeah, they can try to do that with James Bond, but again, I think they're going to have another flop on their hands. And the thing that I think that's going to wind up destroying the whole SJW insanity in Hollywood is the losses, because when it comes down to these films cost anywhere from $100 to $300 million. And the studios can't afford to keep taking losses on these films. And when you have so many films that are failing, you had Dark Phoenix fail, you have Men in Black International flopping right now, you have Shaft flopping. So what's going to happen is you're going to have so many of these films fail at the box office, and what's going to happen is the studios aren't going to be able to afford to keep making these films. And it's going to be a lot like what happened in the 60s, late 60s, where they were making these epic movies and the movies weren't catching on because the Vietnam War was going on and people wanted to see something different because they didn't want to see a big musical or an epic movie talking about World War II when people were coming home from Vietnam deeply traumatized from the horrors they saw in Vietnam. So what's going to happen is I think we're going to see another revolution in film as related to the entire film industry, because these social justice films, they just aren't making the money. So they're going to have to course correct sooner rather than later, because when you've had this year, I mean, in another down year for Hollywood, because Hollywood has been going down for the last 2-3 years, and that's because they make films nobody wants to see. So I see Hollywood in trouble. So that they're not seeing where they're going, but I see where they're going, and it's not a good place. When I look at Hollywood, it's not a very good place, and they really need to get themselves together. We got 42 in the chat. Can we get it up to 40? It's 32 likes now. Can we get up to 43? I really appreciate that. I mean, so could you guys get the likes up? Because that's something that really helps me out. And if you want to donate to the super chat, I would really appreciate that too. So, I mean, if they have a bad year, because I look at all these movies, I think that Terminator is going to flop. I think a lot of them are going to flop. So this is what's going to kill the whole SJW thing. And from the negative response that the Batwoman show is getting, I think they're going to be in for a rude awakening over at Warner Brothers. I mean, we're 42 in the room. We got 38. Just need, I think, it's about 6 more likes. Come on, guys. Let's get the likes up. Let's get those likes up, because it helps with the algorithm and it helps me get noticed. And again, really helps out. So Black Ronin, yeah, they are trying to send a message. Unfortunately, nobody is listening to the message. That's the whole problem with these SJW movies, is that, yeah, you want to send a message, but it's a message nobody cares about. And the whole thing with sending a message in your art or your literature is you have to make the audience care. You have to show me a reason to care. That is one thing that a good writer knows, is that you have to make the audience believe what you are producing and the narrative you believe. And most people don't believe the narratives in much of this material because it is so heavy-handed and preachy that it alienates the core audience. So the whole thing is that they're trying to make people like these so-called strong women, but the whole thing is none of these women have any relatable internal character traits that make you like them. And you have to give me internal character traits that show me a character that I could like. And we're not getting that in these characters. They're just skin tones again, hair textures, ethnicities, but they aren't people. They aren't voices. They aren't personalities. What's the status of the ISIS graphic novel? I'm still raising funds for it. I've got enough for a couple of pages, Mobar, but I'm still trying to get those funds out there. And if you guys could donate to the Patreon, that would help me a long way in getting to the funds for the graphic novel. I'm going to try to, I might talk to Bill Walker about doing some pages to sample of the ISIS graphic novel. That's a project I'm still working on. But I've got a long way to go because it's going to be a lot of money for just to get the art for the pages. But I'm still trying to get there. So I'm on my way with it. What's going on, Chris Franklin? Glad to see you here at the stream. We're getting into, the tail end of it. But we're still talking about this SJW insanity. And I don't know who's playing a new Spawn. I got to look into that. But the ISIS graphic novel is a project I'm working on, but I need donations to the Patreon to do that. And I'm trying to get those funds raised. It's a lot of money to do this. I mean, I went over the budget again. It's like, was it $9,300 for the art, and I think a couple like $3,100 for the colors. It's a lot of money. So I'm trying to get that money together for it, and I'm hoping to try to get something going with it if I can get enough money together. So there is a chronological order for the ISIS and John Haynes books, Paul, but I can't really go into it because that means I have to go into so many books right now. But there is a chronological order. The most recent John Haynes book is Dark Succubus. The first book is John Haynes, A Conversation with Death, and the book that starts everything in the SJS Direct universe. That is The Temptation of John Haynes. And there's a book that goes in between, The Man Who Rules the World, but that's in the box, and I have to get that out. So all of these are part of John Haynes. ISIS, that's a lot of books. That's a lot of books, but the most recent ISIS book is All That Glitters. And if you pick up ISIS All That Glitters, what you can do is look in the back of the paperback or the ebook format, and it'll show you all the books in chronological order. So if you go in the back of the ISIS series book, whether it be paperback or ebook, you can go all the way to the back and it'll show you all the books. I mean, these are the early ones that I did, Trial of the Goddess and ISIS. And this is the SJS Direct Universe. Starts with Temptation of John Haynes and then segues into Omari's Revenge. And we have all the other ISIS series books. These are the early ones, like Ultimate Fight, Beauty Myth, Death of a Theta, My Sister, My Frenemy, All About the Goddess with the original cover, because this was printed before I put the new cover on. Then the Bill Welko Wrath of the Cyber Goddess cover. We have Power of the Princess, which continues the Nemesis arc. We have Night of the Vampires, Bride of Dracula, Samurai Goddess, House of Isis, where Isis takes on a pro-black militant. And we have Escape from Transylvania, which was the next to last ISIS book before All That Glitters. And those are all the books of the ISIS series in the book. So if you get the book, you'll get all the books of the ISIS series in the chronological order. And if you want to get the Easting series, which is the companion to the John Haynes series, this is the newest one, Goddess of, which takes place after Easting Ascension. And in the back here are all of the Easting series books. And all of these, many of these early ones are free on Smashwords. So we've got No Good Deed, Deadly Delilah, which is free on Amazon. My Sister, My Frenemy, which is an ISIS story, which ties into Easting story. And we have Demons Anonymous, which is a major story in Easting's arc. Then we have Fairy Tale, The Beast from the Bowels, Bill Welko's first Easting cover, Easting Undercover. Then I ran out of money, so I had to do Witches of Eastland, which is was an Easting story. Then we have Little Girl Lost, and we have Easting Ascension. And then we have Easting Sands of Time, which everybody loves. So that's the Easting series in a chronological order. And this is John Haynes' appearances in the SJS Direct universe. So you'll be able to pick them up. Starts with The Temptation of John Haynes, The Man Who Rules the World. And then his arc in the ISIS series, which was Wrath of the Cyber Goddess, Night of the Vampires, Bride of Dracula, Escape from Transylvania, and all of those segue into, I believe, let me see. Well, Sands of Time is like a guest. That's a one-off story, but A Conversation with Death. But you can start John Haynes really easy with A Conversation with Death and Dark Succubus. So you can get both of these, and you'll be able to get into John Haynes real easy. So that's the SJS Direct universe in a nutshell. And I'm going to get back to this. I heard about the SJWs in My Little Pony, and I'm not a fan of that because that's putting things in children's material, and I don't feel it's appropriate there. Thank you for the donation, Black Ronin. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Mobar7170. I appreciate your support. All these books are appropriate for teens. Everything in an SJS Direct book usually is PG-13 with the ISIS series and the Easting series. The only books that I would say are like rated R are the books of the Spinsterella trilogy after Spellbound. Legendary Mad Matilda is, I would say, an R-rated book, and Spinsterella is rated R. But every other book I do is PG-13. So the Mojo King 45419, all the books in the ISIS and Easting series and the John Haynes series, they are PG-13. So you should feel safe about giving them to tweens, teenagers. They will have no problem with those books. because I try to keep the content in the SJS Direct universe really PG. The only place I go really hard with the R-rated language, which is like a little bit of profanity, some sex scenes, and maybe possible nudity, is the books of the Spinsterella trilogy. So, but the other books, the content is PG, PG-13. Yeah, I heard about Arthur, and I was going to do a video on that, but I just keep running out of time. That's also part of the SJW insanity, with Mr. Ratburn being revealed as gay, and that's not appropriate, I believe, for young children. It has no place in children's literature. I don't know what is gotten into Mark Brown's mind, but that has no place for a children's story. When it comes down to children's stories, there should be no sexual orientation or sexual content as I see it. I mean, with children who are small, like 5, 6, 7 years old, we shouldn't be talking about gender or anything like that. It just should be kids being kids. I'm going to get ready to wrap up the stream in about 5 minutes. But this SJW insanity, they're producing some really cringeworthy content, and it's really painful. What do I think is on their agenda, Mojo King? I think their agenda is about going out here and promoting this homosexual agenda, and they're out here trying to promote this sexual deviant agenda, and it's just not appropriate again. And most people, they're not into it because they just want to be able to watch their favorite characters and their favorite stories without having somebody trying to push diversity agendas, sexual agendas, political agendas. What they just want to do is see a great story, but we're not getting that because these people are so caught up in trying to push an agenda that they don't want to give us a great story. So when I look at these SJWs, it's like, well, the thing that we can do about it is just not to buy the content. That's how we shut these people down, is by not buying the content. Because when it comes down to SJW insanity, what happens is businesses need to see that we're going to affect their bottom line by not supporting these products. And that's how we have an impact on the overall brand. So when it comes down to it, they may not be able to write a great story, but I know how to write a great story. So if you want a great story, just don't buy their stories, buy my stories, buy the stories of other artists out here like Chris Brown with his Omega Black, which is great manga, by Raymond Leonard's Agent Solo, Josh Howard's T-Bird and Throttle, or pick up any of the books on my SJS Direct imprint, whether it be the new John Haynes' Dark Succubus, Isis All That Glitters, Esteem Goddess of, books like Legendary Mad Matilda, Esteem Ascension, Isis All About the Goddess. All these books I'm showing you, you can go out here and yeah, I'll check out your website after the stream, Alan. I'm going to check it out and see what it's about. But I really wanted you guys to go out here and buy these books, because if you want books that feature great heroines with real solid character development and rich multidimensional personalities, the SJS Direct imprint is the place for that. A lot of the things that the SJWs talk about, I actually put in my work. I give you full character development, full character transformation arcs. I give you rich multidimensional characters, and I give you great stories about African-American women, African-American men, and I try to give you a unique take on the African-American experience in my stories. So if you want something that does not feature identity politics, you can pick up the books of the SJS Direct imprint, and you're going to see what a story from a Black writer from the Black experience looks like without identity politics or social justice narratives. So that's what I produce, and that's how we fight social justice narratives in media, is by going out here and supporting the media that does not feature it, because you don't have to go out here and spend $14 to watch an incredibly bad MCU movie, or a movie like Men in Black International, or a movie like the new Shaft, which emasculates black men, a movie that presents you a bumbling, stumbling beta male, or watching a TV show like the CW's Batwoman, which desecrates the legend of one of America's most iconic characters. Instead, you can take your money and support a character on the SJS Direct imprint, or one of these other characters out here. There's just so much great material out here, and you can go pick that up, and you can get out here and get those great books and have some fun with those. Thank you, Mojo King. I think your son and your daughter will love the books in the SJS Direct imprint. I have a couple of readers who have become big time John Haynes fans. They love John Haynes, and I get so many letters from people who like John Haynes, and I think they'll like ISIS, and they'll like E-Steam too. E-Steam is very popular with a lot of readers all over the country and all over the world. And ISIS, the goddess next door, people love her. So I get feedback from lots of people who love the books that on the SJS Direct imprint, books like Conversation with Death people loved, and books like Dark Succubus, and books like books in the ISIS series. People love these books when they read them. I had one of my viewers who told me that when Dark Succubus came out, his son ran for that book and started reading it almost immediately, and that was something that put a smile on my face to hear that, you know, a kid actually was into John Haynes. I get emails from people who tell me they like John Haynes so much, and I really like. That's one of those things that makes me passionate about getting back to the keyboard, and I'm hoping to get the next John Haynes book out, The Man with Nothing to Lose, either in 2020 or late 2019. Just depends on when I can get the covers, because I'm still doing the editing for that book. I've got another book that I'm doing, ISIS, the Main Event. I'm getting close to the climax on that one. That one, the goddess next door enters a wrestling ring, and that one covers the world of professional wrestling. And I'm getting ready to do a vampire story called Eternal Night. So I'm really busy on a whole lot of different stories. I'm hoping to get some great stuff out for the SJS Direct 2020 catalog, because I know that, you know, SJWs, the narratives they want to present of black people, these are racist narratives, and these narratives are, thank you, Mobar 7170. Yeah, his son loves John Haynes, and I have a great John Haynes story getting ready to produce soon. I'm in the editing of it. Talked to two artists about the cover. I want to do the two covers this time, for The Man Who Has Nothing to Lose. And I really want to get that one out here, because that one is going to be, you know, chock full of action. It's almost like a Luke Cage episode. So you're going to really enjoy that one. I'm going to get ready to wrap the stream up. I thank you all for coming to the stream, and I thank you all for taking time to hear me talk about all of this SJW insanity. And I hope to talk more about any more SJW insanity that goes on in future videos. But you guys can go out here and please pick up the new John Haynes Dark Succubus, ISIS Fall That Glitters, E-Steam Goddess of, and the other books in the SJS Direct imprint, like Legendary Mad Matilda, because this one has a great character transformation arc in it. The whole Spinsterella trilogy has a great character transformation arc. And you can pick up other books like All About the Goddess and Conversation with Death and E-Steam Ascension. And all of them will show you great character transformation arcs featuring strong heroes and strong heroines. And I hope you'll be there for next week's live stream. I think it's going to be Wednesday. But I'm also going to be on Obsidian Radio on Tuesday at 10 a.m. And I hope you'll be there for that live stream. We're going to go a bit more in depth, talking about various topics. So I hope you'll be there on Tuesday. And I hope you'll be there for the Wednesday live stream. Again, I hope you pick up the books this weekend, because it's great fun reading. And I hope you'll be there for the live stream next Wednesday.